Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Thank you for joining me on another community live stream. My name is Chuck Tomasi from ServiceNow, and I am the ServiceNow guy with the red bow tie, as it says there right on the banner. And you can find me on Twitter at ctomasi or LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you and reach out and have those discussions with you. This is the episode or the show. This is an episode of the show where I get together with you and go through whatever I can find in the community behind me. It's going to be random stuff. I'm going to impart whatever knowledge I can, share whatever I can, because that's what we do in the community. We're going to go through, find what we can find, talk about best practices, maybe learn some tips. I know I learn something every time I do this, and I hope you do too. Hope you find this valuable. It's not only getting the answer, but it's how I get to the answer so that you can apply those same techniques and tips in your daily life. Let me get through the formalities. I want to remind you that we are doing this on YouTube, so if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get a notification. Thank you for joining me live. I do this every weekday, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. UTC. I think it's time for the herbal tea. Wow, starting early. And you get notifications when that comes out. We also have a lot of other great content. It's interesting because I looked at the list of content that's on the NOWCommunity channel, and it blows my mind. It seemed like just a few weeks ago that it was community live stream, community live stream, community live stream, something else. It was like 1 out of every 3 or 4 posts was something other than what I was doing. And now I'm in the minority, which feels good. There is a lot of great content that's coming out on the community channel. So whether you're interested in security or HR or ITSM or any part of that, certainly have a look at that content. There's a lot of great videos that have come out, short videos, long videos. Sounds like the old Armor Hot Dogs commercial. If you are watching live, please give me a shout out. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what the weather's like over there. And I'd love to hear from you. It certainly is a global experience. If you're watching this afterwards, thank you very much for watching as well. Nothing wrong with that. I really, really appreciate it. And also want to let you know that we simulcast this on Twitch. Those are around for a couple of weeks, if I remember right. I don't think we have the full archiving package there, but we do have all of the videos. If for whatever reason you want to watch this, I view it sort of as a daily news story. Certainly don't feel compelled that you have to go back to November 20th when I launched the first rather lackluster episodes of this and go back and watch us on YouTube. You don't have to. If there are some interesting tips or something, let me know. If you do have questions, please post them in the community, questions or issues. That is the best place to put them. Make sure you put them in the proper forum so that the right people can spot them, help with you. If you've got a reporting question, please put it in the reporting forum. If you've got a question about ITSM, put in the ITSM question. If you've got a developer question, you're stuck on a script or something, the developer area is where you want to put that. If you put it in the wrong place, or if you throw it in here, well, I'm probably not going to be able to answer it. My specialty is in custom applications, integrations, and the platform in general. And that's what this will focus on. So if you are one of those developer types or admins, you're probably going to enjoy this content. I may dig into other areas of expertise just to see what's there. Occasionally I get lucky and can throw somebody a link or get a conversation started that will help them with their situation. On the other hand, again, if you put something in the chat other than a hi, the weather's great in Florida or India or Sydney or wherever it is, I'm not going to be able to answer it, and nobody's going to be able to find it later, and that's disappointing because we want people to learn and share and grow and get that way. Good morning, Carolyn. Carolyn's one of our regulars. Good to see you there again, as always. I did go back and watch all of them. It was enjoyable. I have to admit, some of those first ones, I didn't quite have my game on yet. It was really hard to get motivated this early in the morning. It's 6 a.m. here in Phoenix, Arizona, and they were a little bleary-eyed. So it's not quite what I was up for. I think it took till about February to get that far. Rahul Sharma. Hi, Chuck. This is Rahul from India. Big fan of you, buddy. Thank you very much. Appreciate the fact that you are watching, and hope you had a great day. I know it's the end of the day. I believe it's about 7:30 IST right now. Beauty of Phoenix, Arizona is we don't change our clocks. The downside of Phoenix, Arizona is I have to remember where everybody else is when they change their clocks. Except Hawaii. They're always 3 hours behind me. I never have to think about that. Where were we? We did community. I also want to mention that we will be doing some stuff on the developer site, both looking for APIs. I'm sure we're going to come up with some questions about what was the method for this or how do I convert that. We've got all the scripting APIs on developer.servicenow.com. But more than that, you can go get your own free personal developer instance running Istanbul, Jakarta, or Kingston. And then when London comes out, we'll take Istanbul off the list and make it Jakarta, Kingston, and London. London will be later this year. Looking forward to that. Should get some secret inside hints at Knowledge, but I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But developer site also have meetups. Don't forget, there are meetups around the world. If you want to start one, reach out to us. We'd love to have you start a chapter. If there isn't one in your area, if there is, it's really pretty simple. You find a place to have a meetup, and we do the rest. That's kind of the way it goes. I mean, you want to have an agenda as well. But it's really up to you how you want to run those developer meetups. They are a lot of fun. We're going to be having one more in Phoenix on the 26th, and there are several others that are happening before Knowledge. So please go over to developer.servicenow.com and check out the events list and see what you can find. Also on the events list is Tech Now episode 26. No, not 26, 49. I'm a little bit behind. It's on April 26th. That's where that number came from. We will be talking about the REST API Explorer. If you go into the community and search for Tech Now episode list, as I will do right now, let me go to right here in the middle of the screen. Let's put that away. We will be having Tech Now episode list. This is the actual live community software. This is completely unscripted every day. It's searching, it's searching, it's searching. And right there at the top of the list, you've got that. Episode 49 is being done a little bit differently. We're not going to be doing a live hangout on YouTube as we have in the past for the last 5 years. We are changing our technology, and it is a registration process so that you get reminded and you get to interact with us a little bit better, a little bit differently. We're trying something new, switching technologies and putting the onus of video operations on somebody else. See all this content that we've done in Tech Now? You might want to bookmark this page. A lot of good stuff in there about scripting, performance analytics, reporting. But on episode 49, there is a register now. I'm going to open that in a second tab just so I don't lose that list. May need to come back to that later. We don't know. And there is a registration, and you'll get a reminder, calendar invite, the whole 9 yards. And Dave Slusher, Craig Stepp, and I will be doing our usual shtick on the REST API Explorer. And then it's off to, as you can see here, live at CreatorCon 2018. We are going to be doing sessions on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, building an application. I get to build the framework, the tables, the data model, the business rules, that kind of thing. I think I've got a flow designer flow in there that I'm going to build. And then Craig will come along and connect it to an HRMS, an HR management system. It's just doing an integration in front of us, live. And then Dave on the third day is going to come along and make it beautiful. We will post this application to GitHub. So if you want to take it apart, tear it apart, build it, build on it, make it your own, you're certainly welcome to do that. That's what we do. We build, we learn, we share. And we've got some other great stuff that I'll talk to you in a little bit, maybe about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. We'll do some more insights on Knowledge. But for now, let's get into what awaits us in the community. Good morning, Steve. Good to see you. I do have a comment on something that transpired a few hours ago. I saw your message on the community, and I made a link to that. So I look forward to getting in that conversation. I know it's already been resolved, but I wanted to point out some positive things about that. I like to start with the unreplied questions. Raul says, can you please explain about SOAP integration in more detail and how it is used, and also about using transform maps regarding integrations? I can do a high-level explanation for you here, but my best solution, I learned the most out of SOAP. I think it was a community article by Glenn Pinto a few years ago on how to do that. SOAP is really just, I'll start here, sure, why not? Makes for good show content, I'll do it. SOAP is simply a protocol, and it involves a message body and a message envelope. The envelope, you can kind of think of it as a postal letter. You've got your letter inside of an envelope, and the envelope has an address on it, and that tells all the particulars. So when you send this, remember, the only thing that can go over the internet is text. Whether it's HTML, JavaScript, CSS, anything going over HTTP is text. So it's got to be encoded. Even binary files, if we send images, they're all encoded and then decoded on the other side. So it's just text. If you, SOAP is a way to send complex data. There's SOAP, and a more modern approach is REST. In fact, Amazon no longer supports SOAP for doing their Amazon Web Services integrations. It is all REST. For probably the last 4 years, I think, 3 or 4 years, they made that switch. I know it was while I was in services enablement at ServiceNow that they made that. The whole point of SOAP is, as I mentioned, you can send complex data as you can with REST. I prefer REST. I've done SOAP. But you have to carefully construct the parameters for who is it for, what is the format. And SOAP has this definition that you need to get first called a WSDL, a Web Services Definition Language, Library. I can't remember what the L stands for at the moment. But if you want to get the WSDL for any table in ServiceNow, for example, you can put hostname, servicenow.com, /table name incident dot do capital WS.dl. I could do that, except the URL is so tiny on my screen you won't be able to see it. But if you put the suffix of $WSDL, it will give you that definition. And what that is for the consumer. So the idea of these web services is you have a producer. Think of it as like the vegetable producer, if you will. Someone's got something that you want. They are the producer of that good, the producer of that service. In web services terms, this is where I would go to get my information. Weather.com. I want to get that information. Weather.com is the producer. I am the consumer. So I want to consume their information. I make a request first to get the WSDL and say, what am I allowed to do and what format is this in? And they will say, your temperature is going to be in an integer, your location is going to be a string. All of that stuff is in the WSDL. You're allowed to read. You are not allowed to write my records. You are not allowed to delete my records. That kind of thing is in that WSDL. It's just text, and it usually comes out in XML. That's the typical format back and forth for SOAP. Not always, but that's typical of how how SOAP does their stuff. So I make this request to get the WSDL, and then I can find out what functions I'm allowed to do. Oh, I'm allowed to get the temperature, or I'm allowed to get the forecast. I'm allowed to get a radar map, whatever it happens to be from this weather site. I'll use that as an example of the producer. I make a request, I get the WSDL back, and then I get additional information about what I'm allowed to do. That gives me the information to actually start consuming that information. I make a secondary request. You really only need to get the WSDL once. In ServiceNow, that's stored in a WSDL record, and we actually parse and break that down into the various functions in a related list for that SOAP request. Sometimes people do change their protocols and you need to re-get the WSDL. Sometimes the WSDL needs to be downloaded manually. It's not something you can get as part of a web request and say, give me your WSDL, like you can with ServiceNow tables with a $WSDL. You have to get it as a separate file, and you can do that again with ServiceNow. You can import it and save it right into that record. We will still break down the functions and say this is what you're allowed to do on that consumer system. Hope that's making any sense. Then you can start your exchange, and when you get that information back from the producer, you will need to run it through a transform process. Now, the transform process is the same with any other import set. You take your raw imported data, it ends up in a staging table. We call it an import set, or an import set table as part of the import set. And the records map to what the original data was. In the case of the weather, you might have a location, a temperature, what the skies are overhead, the winds, the wind direction. You know, let's say we've got 5 fields that came back from, hey, what's the weather right now? This is the same kind of thing that you would get from Alexa. Really, that's all Alexa's doing on the back end is just a bunch of REST requests anyway. So the information comes back in a raw import set table. Then you get to map, what do I want the original fields to map to on the target table? You set up this mapping. Maybe it's called temp in the import set, but yours is called temperature or U_temperature. You set up that mapping in the transform. You could also do any manipulations. Maybe they sent back the temperature is 22F or 22C. Excuse me, 22. I don't want to go there. 22C. And you want to strip off the C. You can do that in the transform map script. So you can massage that data and say, take off the C. I'm storing it as an integer, not as a string. 22C would be a string. Very nice, but I don't really need that. You can massage that data, and then it gets mapped into the target table. There are other transform operations you can do. So you need the import set, you need the source table, the target table, the transform map, and possibly any transform scripts. It gets a little more complex, but if you look up import sets on ServiceNow, it'll walk you through the process and procedure, and you'll find everything you need to get started. Again, there is, I believe, I'm going to look, I don't know if it's still out there or not. It might have been deprecated. I'm going to look on the doc site for SOAP. Let's see what it says. Proxy server, SOAP message, SOAP roles. Let's see what it says about SOAP message. I think I'm still looking in the Kingston stuff. Unable SOAP. I thought there was a SOAP tutorial. Test the SOAP message, configure SOAP execution command. SOAP, I didn't even mention what SOAP stands for. It is Streaming Object Access Protocol, if I remember right. Let's find out. Was I right? I'm just going to look. SOAP, not the kind you scrub with. A messaging protocol. Let's see what, come on, Wikipedia, tell me the answer. SOAP, the TV series. Wow. Here's an old one. Anybody remember that? I also had a flashback last night. I was doing another podcast with some friends of mine, and somebody mentioned Lance Link. Simple Object Access Protocol. That's what it was. All right. Good morning, Jay. Good to see you. Wow. Wow. Good to see you. Big fan. I guess I've even got fans internal to ServiceNow. What is your opinion on Flow Designer? ServiceNow says it enables the process owners to automate processes without having to code. However, giving a process owner the Flow Designer role is dangerous because they get access to all tables and database operations. Care to comment? Yes, I can comment about Flow Designer. I hope we're done with the SOAP discussion. I just want to know what Simple Object Access Protocol was. I was going to check and see if there was still a video here. Then I will get back to, it's turning more into a live open hours, open office hours kind of thing. All right, I don't see the video anymore, but I will see if I can find that or find a good reference for you. I thought it was on there. No, there's the developer site. I don't like the animations. They make me kind of nauseous, especially during videos. So Flow Designer, good morning, Aspen Now Solutions. We've got our regular breakfast crew here. I think we're just missing James from UK. Maybe James is out there. Flow Designer does enable non-coders. It's analogous to Service Portal, in my opinion. There is a no-code role that you can use for dragging and dropping. In the case of ServiceNow, it would be widgets onto the page. In the case of Flow Designer, it is constructing a flow. It is not parity with the graphical workflow engine we've got today. It is not feature matched yet. That is our ultimate goal. What it does do a great job of, and this was a light bulb moment I had just a couple of weeks ago, that it's a wonderful replacement for many business rules. In fact, I have to keep retraining myself that Flow Designer is there, much like the script debugger. Right? I keep sticking in GS info statements when I'm debugging a script. Go, oh, dummy, you've got a script debugger. Why not set a breakpoint, and then you can watch everything? Okay, it's hard to train us old guys to do new things. So Flow Designer makes for a good replacement for business rules. In many cases where business rules are used. Go find all the records. Like if you're updating child records, let's say you close an incident, you want to close all the incident tasks that are still open. Very easy to do in Flow Designer. Not so easy to do with a business rule. I wouldn't give a process owner or a team lead or an admin assistant access to a business rule. With Flow Designer, as I understand, no, they don't have access to all the tables. They only have access to the tables that are in the scope. You give the non-coder access. This has to be on scoped applications because we are dealing with delegated development, and that is part of scoped applications. So if I'm writing a scoped app and I want to give a process owner access to Flow Designer, I go into Studio. I can show you. Easy enough. That's what my demo system's for. I go into Studio, and I wrote an application that's going to be demoed. I'm going to do a quick demo to explain a concept on Tech Now on Thursday. So I've got this beer application. I have 2 tables, breweries and beers. Makes for good demos, right? I always keep it entertaining. And under the file menu, I say Manage Developers, and I can take somebody like Luke Wilson and say, give him access to Flow Designer. That's it. I can also say if Luke wants to modify tables and forms and add fields to forms, we can do that. Let's see. Question: can you explain about ITOM modules? Rajesh, wow. Oh, we're getting way out there right now, but I'll see what I can do. I'm not an ITOM expert. I can give you the high level stuff. Joao says it's mentioned in the docs. Help me understand what was mentioned in the docs. That they have access to all the tables? Let's find out. Let's make Luke Wilson a Flow Designer guy, and then I will log in as Luke and see if I can make a flow on the beer table or another table. Let's save that. I think there's a save. My font might be a little too large. There it is. Almost closed the window without a save. I will impersonate Luke Wilson, something I've done on this before. Hey, if this is all we do is ask questions and play around with the instance, I'm fine. Might not get to any questions. I would like to follow up on some of the questions that I had yesterday, but I love the interaction here today. So let's go to Flow Designer. And Luke could also do this through Studio. I prefer to use Flow Designer outside of Studio because when it's launched from inside Studio, it comes up in a new window. When you use it this way, it comes up in a new tab. Now, granted, I could probably find a way to put the tab on there. Let's do a new flow. Flow name is going to be Drink Beer. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this flow yet. And you're saying when I go to add a trigger and say if a record is created or updated on table. Ah, we do have access to all the tables. Okay, so what is the concern or question there? Is it that you could, we're just using this as a trigger to say, hey, let's find out when this record has been updated. Or is it that I can update other records? Let's say if I've got a brewery record, or a new beer record, because I'm sure there's so many tables that have the word beer in them. We'll run that always. And if the style, I'm making this up as I go. I have no idea what a real flow would be on this table. This wasn't part of my thought process when I was coming up with this example. It's for a completely different thing. If it's an IPA, then we'll take some action and we will say update a record. Now, what we can update depends largely on this application scope. Since this is in one scope, I can only update records that allow me to access data on their tables. So I will say update what record. Now, I only have access to records that are in this data pill picker. I can either pick them here, which says you get to choose from the trigger record, or I can drag them from here. You only get to choose the trigger record. Unless, excuse me, unless I do maybe something like look up records. And then I could select a table. Let's say look up records in incident. I'm just going to try this. Now, incident is a global table. All other scopes have access to right to that table. That's the danger of using global scopes. There's nothing I can do about that. That is going to be the same whether you give them a business rule, a workflow, or something else. So help me understand what the issue is. I'm not seeing a huge concern about triggering from any other table because I may want somebody else's table to trigger an action on my process. You know, let's say if we have a new server that's launched, we drink a beer. Let's create a beer record. Okay. Sounds like a good use case to me. I don't know about you. If we shut down a facility, let's drink a beer. Hey, Felipe, we're making just crazy use cases out of here. I have an imagination this morning. So that's Flow Designer in a nutshell. Love the topic, beer, not ITOM. Rajesh, you asked about ITOM. ITOM is IT Operations Management. It is a very complementary product to ITSM, IT Service Management. But I view ITSM kind of like HR, without an org chart. If you don't have an org chart for your organization, it's very hard for HR to find out who's the manager of whom, what approvals are needed, what's the chain of command, how do we hire, how do we terminate. All that stuff is very difficult without an org chart. The org chart to me in an organization is the CMDB of managing your IT assets and infrastructure. That's what the CMDB for. And the ITOM suite of products, whether it's service mapping, discovery, event management, that suite of products is there to help you discover and manage your CMDB more effectively. Could you do it without ITOM? Absolutely. You could do it manually. You can import spreadsheets. You can do integrations to SolarWinds. You could get all this information from other places. The ITOM stuff makes it more effective and scalable is really what it comes down to. Is it worth it for you to do this manually and import and potentially have obsolete data, or should we launch a discovery every night or once a week or whatever across multiple data centers and get that information in there? So discovery will go out and find a range of, it will find the devices on a range of IP addresses. Let's say I have an office in Sydney, Australia, and I put a mid server out there and say, hey, mid server, go find everything in this IP range on this subnet. And it will return, I found printers, I found switches, I found routers, I found desktops, I found IP phones, I found Linux machines. It finds all this stuff and it builds the connections between them. It understands who is talking and who is listening on a specific TCP port, because it also asks for not just the devices as part of the exploration part of the process. I'm not going to go deep into discovery here. But it builds those connections so that you start to understand what your topology looks like. And that's something that would be very, very difficult to build, at least and more difficult to maintain if it were done manually. So discovery gives you the ability to keep that stuff up to date. If we suddenly switch from one database server to another database server, we went from DB004 to DB017 on this particular application, discovery is going to pick that up right away, whereas if you did it manually, you have to have that documented and update the connection in the CMDB. It gets really ugly. So it gives you a scalable solution. Service mapping, aka Service Watch, is a way to build a business service map. That's really what it comes down to. You're mapping a business service based on an entry point, and you say, okay, start at this IP address or start at this TCP port and say, who are you and who do you talk to? That's really all service mapping does. It says, who are you? It says, I am a load balancer. Great, load balancer. Who do you talk to? I talk to these 4 nodes. Okay, let's ask node 1. Node 1, what are you? I am a Linux machine. Okay, who do you talk to? I talk to this database server, I talk to this email server, and I talk to... So you get this hierarchical recursive map of what just that business service looks like. Whereas the discovery product is very horizontal. Go find everything in this IP range. Service mapping is very surgical. You only get the CIs and the relationships that matter to that particular service. ITOM is a really amazing path for a walkthrough. Yep, that should apply to what ServiceNow calls the Service Watch features: discovery, service mapping, event management, and of course, event management. I'm not too up on operational intelligence, and cloud management really extends beyond your data centers into the virtual data center. So if you've got Amazon services, we can discover that and help you manage that as well. So that's also available. Basic phase should be to build, and configure, discovery, and event management. I agree. Event management, of course, will help take care of what is the state of those things right now. Am I getting alerts? Do those alerts need to be turned into incidents? Do the incidents need to propagate a change? That all comes down to event management. I am not an expert in event management or cloud management. I know the basics of them, but certainly if you want to find out more, engage your account team, and they'll be happy to talk to you more about that if you're interested in finding that. I want to make sure I didn't miss something else from the chat is going nuts today. Perhaps we can set up a K18 beer meetup. I think that's called Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. But definitely come find me. I will be sharing the this little beer app. It really isn't that sophisticated. I'm going to show the community quick tip that we put into Tech Now about a year and a half ago. We started putting out these little tips, little short segments within the show, at the top of the show, to help you understand. It's really how to get your scripts ready for the future, how to make them, don't take that the wrong way. It's to make them language independent. You've probably already seen this, you know, about gs.getMessage and just proper use to make your scripts language proof in the future. And if you're using gs.getMessage, you're already done. If you're using getMessage in your client scripts, you're already done. That's all I'm going to talk about. I just needed a fun way to say, when I rate a beer over 4.0, a business rule comes in and says, that was good beer. Well, I need to pull that from the messages table. That's what I'm going to show you on Tech Now. I'm not going to get in there now. How does ref autocomplete equals age as reference choice work on catalog variable? I can't get it to work in my reference variable. I don't really know that one. You might want to ask that in the community. That's a better community question. I've been covering kind of high-level concept stuff here in the community, and I haven't even gotten to one question. It's half past the hour already. It's amazing first half of this show. Thank you very much. I'm really pleased at the engagement. I haven't even taken a sip of tea yet. I've been holding it for 20 minutes. You know what? At the top of the show, I was feeling a bit drained. I had a headache and wasn't feeling it, but you guys have really brought out the best today. Thank you. This is better than I expected. I thought we were going to be doing a standard show here. I'm going to skip the new questions. I'm going to go right for the links. Oh, before I do that, let's talk about knowledge, because I'm sure all of you know what knowledge is, but there may be a viewer or two that have not heard of this or cannot go or are still on the fence. They haven't made that decision, or you can't convince your boss. If you do need to convince your boss, tell them it is the most valuable 3 days. I'm not including pre-con training, of course, but if you want to get to that, it's the most valuable 5 days you will get for the money spent. You will get hands-on labs. You will get breakout sessions from customers about all topics in your area of specialty. I don't even care or know what your specialty is. You will find it. Trust me. You will build networking relationships that you can call upon throughout the rest of the year. People who have done what you plan to do. People who will look to you for information on what they plan to do that you have already done. It's just a great, great opportunity to maximize your ServiceNow investment for technically very little cost. You think about what the conference costs and the hotel costs. You go, oh my, that's a lot of money. Yeah, it is a lot of money, and I understand everybody's got to watch their costs. But it's all about what is the value you get from those costs. Because if you brought in a partner or a ServiceNow professional services team or something and said, hey, tell me all about ITOM, we could tell you about ITOM, and it will take you a while to implement it, but we're not going to be able to give you the hands-on experience and get you practiced in that so that you can go back and say, this is what we need to do, or we are planning on going to engage or roll out discovery. Let's go to some discovery sessions at Knowledge and get to work on that. If you're more into the technical side, a developer, an admin, an architect, check the checkbox for CreatorCon. There is information in there that you definitely want to use. Try to go inside Saba Cloud and find Jakarta TOI, ITOM, CMDB, good info. Also check inside the community for a great article. Yeah, there's a lot of great CMDB and ITOM information in the community. Sorry for jumping around a little bit. Just keeping up on the chat as it scrolls by. I don't want to miss anything. So again, Knowledge, a lot of good information. Check the checkbox that says CreatorCon. Pre-con training is, I think it's half price for the 2-day courses. And there are a ton of courses. I will be there Saturday. Got to do some setup on Sunday and Monday. I've got an IoT workshop. I believe if it's not filled, it's almost filled. And we'll probably do that as a repeat. I haven't quite heard yet. Probably find out at the very last minute. Guess what? We're repeating this on Wednesday or Thursday. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I've got a Tech Now session on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Go to knowledge.servicenow.com. If you're still not sure all of what you're going to get, there is a content catalog right on that main page. I believe it's under Sessions. On the left side, you'll see Sessions, Content Catalog, and it will show you. You can search by role. I am an architect. I am a CIO. And it will say, these are the sessions that it recommends for you. Not that you have to go to all those sessions, not that you possibly could go to all those sessions, and not that you couldn't go to any other sessions. You just use it as a guideline of what might be useful to you. I really wish I had this when I went to Knowledge 10 as a customer years ago. I was flipping pages. Yes, we had pages of what we wanted to see. And I don't believe there was any advanced sign up. We just got there and said, what are we going to look at? Different time, different. 500 people attended that conference in 2010. We are looking at about 18,000, and I suspect we'll exceed that. And we want to see you there in Las Vegas, May 7th through 10th at the Venetian, having a good time. Thank you, Felipe, for the kind words. Oh, yes. I don't know if we're having certification at Knowledge this time. Have to check on that. I hadn't heard. Okay. Staring me in the screen on the other screen are a couple of scripting exercises that would probably take up the rest of this. I mentioned Steve's article earlier. I'm going to take a drink of tea. Are we having fun yet? No certifications this year. Thank you, sir. Good info to know. I had written, am I correct in assuming that dot walking using GlideAggregate is not working? So he's got an example here. And the basic answer is yes, GlideAggregate is designed for counting and grouping records, not for getting the values of reference fields. You could use dot walking in your query. So if you had, you wanted to find all of the users who were in a specific department or reported to a boss's boss, you could do that in your GlideAggregate add query method. You could put a dot walked value in there. That's where it would work. Once you get those records, the only thing it's going to return is whatever aggregates you got back in either that grouped or standalone format. So when I say whatever aggregates you added, if I wanted to count the active versus inactive users, I could group them by active, and it would say there are 523 active users, there are 1,562 inactive users. And I would just get back those counts. I'm not getting back the actual records. If you've had any SQL experience, this is very similar to the select star or select count star where something, 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 and it returns the count. It's not the actual records. That's what makes it so fast. We're not querying and retrieving the actual records. Because if all you want to do is count or group or get those numbers, what's the max value, min value, average value, you can look at the GlideAggregate page on, well, let's do that now since we happen to be here. GlideAggregate, search GlideAggregate. If you wanted to perform one of these operations, that's what it's for. It's built specifically for that class GlideAggregate. I always wonder which one I'm going to get, the scoped or the legacy tab when I click these links. We should probably put a thing in there that says which you're going to. Add aggregate. It doesn't tell you what the values are. That's pretty sad. They're different add aggregate? No. Here, let's find in this page where AVG. There we go. Count, sum, min, max, and average. Those are the operations. And it like I said, it does it very, very quickly because it's not retrieving all the records. It's using built-in database functions to do that. GlideRecord, on the other hand, retrieves the records. So if all you're doing is one of these operations, please use GlideAggregate. It's going to be more efficient and scalable. If I want to count records, and all I'm doing is counting records, GlideAggregate. If I have to retrieve the records to do something else, such as update them or use those records to reference other information and maybe retrieve that, then it's GlideRecord, and you get the GlideRecord getRowCount method automatically when you do that. So it's, hope I explained that right. I often do this when I just debug. If I'm doing a GlideRecord operation anyway, I'll say gs.info getRowCount number of records retrieved. Something like, I don't know if my text editor is still here. It is. I'll do a quick and dirty example. Maybe the text editor is going to operate a little faster today. var inc equals new GlideRecord incident. And if I'm just going to do an inc.query, well, we got to be able to spell query right. I could put in gs.info inc.getRowCount plus incidence red. That's a very common thing I do before I go into my while inc.next. Okay, and then do whatever you're going to do because I needed to retrieve them and perform some operations on these. If all I'm going to do is count those records, GlideAggregate is a better way to go. So that was my one and only comment about that. Let's go to this last one, calculated fields. I had a follow-up comment on that as well. Somebody was asking, how do I find out how many records are in the related list and save them to the parent form? And there was a very good solution. Use a calculated script. Come on, come on. Scroll, please. Wow, it's all over the place today. Working on getting an upgrade to this machine. Very good. Again, here's GlideAggregate. All we're doing is counting the records. We go and retrieve that count. And there are many, many replies under here. And I said in my reply that be careful, understand how this is how this is architected. Yes, you can put a calculated value in there. In fact, I did want to do this. I think we have time to go through an example of this because I wanted to prove something out. And fortunately, I can use my beer example. Go back to System Administrator. I discovered this. The thing that triggered this thought was when the reply came back and said, thanks, I didn't know that it wasn't in the docs anywhere, that ServiceNow uses this sort of cached value. It stores the calculated value. When you show a list of records, I said, be careful with calculated values because if it hasn't previously been calculated and stored, it's not going to, it has to recalculate them. And it could make system performance be impacted because it has to run the calculation. Let's say, trying to think of a good use case for this. I can't think of one at the moment, but the use case I had in the past was it would calculate the number of days since something happened. And in the list, they wanted it to say, 15 days or 2 months or whatever it was. And I said, okay, I can calculate that. I added the field to the table, which by default contains nothing. Then I added the field calculation to discover the difference in days. When I showed it on the list, it would say 15 days. When I showed it on the form, when I asked the database and did a glide record query and said, how many days? The glide record query came back and said, empty. It was retrieving the field from the value. When you show it on a list or on a form, that's when the calculation was triggered. Now, I don't know if this functionality still is exactly the same, but I went, oh my goodness. If I were to show a lot of records on a list, it would show one thing, and it would calculate those because they're not cached, they're not saved. If you update the record, it will then run the calculation and save the value. Almost like it's caching it in the actual value of what that field is in the database. Makes sense. So it goes, oh, you have a value. I'll recalculate it when you update the record, but for now I'm going to display that. So that's what that was all about. And again, I'll see if I can verify this offline. I didn't want to take a whole bunch of time in here. But just be aware calculated values could have a system impact if a value wasn't previously saved. So what's the answer for how do I get all those cached? How do I get those saved? Let's take the incident again, and let's say I added a new field called u_calc. Okay. And I have a dictionary entry that uses a calculated field. I can update those fields very easily by saying inc.set, force update true. Because even though you didn't actually update any values, I'm going to make sure you do that because at some point I'm going to need an inc update to update that record. That will recalculate, but it may also have some bad effects. We don't want to update sys updated on, sys updated by. That could lead to false reports. You go, hey, how come all of our SLAs suddenly went to everything's fine? That's probably not what you want. Leave those fields alone. You don't want system as the last person who modified all of these times. If you run this in scripts background, it will get very messy. So auto sys fields is a great way to cover your footprints if you're doing a mass update like this. The other one is set workflow false. If for some reason you have a workflow that's triggered or a business rule that's triggered, this is both workflows and business rules, by the way, that is triggered on update. You may be triggering one or more because business rules can trigger other business rules, can do a lot of things. This is purely get in there, update those records, get out. Don't touch anything else. No business rules, no workflows, no flow designer, no auto sys fields. Just update this, calculate the field, and get out. Those are three very common prefixes that I use when I need to do a mass data update. So think about that. Things like this is the value of the hour, and this is why I watch. All right, well, I will try to keep throwing things in and not repeat them every day. If you've got any other questions, or it's funny because that was, I thought it's hard for me to look at some of these threads and go, oh yeah, that's, we covered that already. But I never know who's watching and when. So I have to keep reminding, is this valuable to somebody? And thank you for confirming that. Very much so. All right, that was the related list count. And even though it was already answered, we've got about 10 minutes left. Duplicates with the same number. I have been putting this off for a few days. And what I should really do is write the script before the show starts and then review it here. So this came up, I apologize, it was a while ago, but it's been revived. Oh, I need to show all replies. I scrolled right by it. I don't even know where the latest reply is. Got some long stuff because there's some script in here. You know what? I'm going to spend too much time digging into this. Let's at least, let's refresh this and at least ask one new question today. See what we can find. That new content. We need new content. I'm reading the comments in the chat. Felipe, you don't drink? Good. Your liver will thank you. You will never have a hangover. That's the best way to go through life, in my opinion. We can still have a meetup. We don't have to have alcohol to have a good time. I spent over the first half of my life in that philosophy. How to get custom attachment fields in Service Portal. Don't think I'm ready yet this morning to go through a deep Service Portal. File attachments are not transferred to third-party integration for a newly created ticket. That is in the Service Integration and Management. Love it. These people are using the proper forums. Is there a way to configure what to show when hovering on a CI in dependency view? Dependency view. Dependency view. Oh, I know what they're talking about. I have to think about that one. I thought there was a property or something you could set. I don't think it's a view. Script related to reporting with time date filter. Cloud resource operation. Service catalog if price only available. On order status. How to aggregate records in a database view. Wow, there are some toughies in here today. Help with this thread. Okay, that seems like a bit of gratuitous. Please come watch my other thread if somebody didn't see it. Clean searchable view of business services. Discovery. CIs marked as retired or not operational. How to add language selection within the custom ESS portal built for our customer. A lot of Service Portal. I still say we need a Service Portal forum. That's a good point we can make in the last few minutes of this. Let's go to communities, all forums. I think there are people that have Service Portal skills that could contribute and would like to subscribe to that. So it's called Member Feedback. We go in there. And if you have comments or feedback or spot a bug, put it in here. And our community team does listen and they do react as evidence of recent features like the show all replies. Some of these things are easy to... What is your question? Like the man in scene 42, scene 24. What was I talking about? Scatterbrain. We wanted... I just lost it. What were we talking about? What did I want to put in the member feedback? I got distracted. This is embarrassing. Help. Someone in the chat room, what was I just talking about? I said we went in here for a reason. And it was to show something. Service Portal. Thank you, Steve. Wow. It's still not 7 a.m. for me yet. Can I use that as an excuse? What is your question? Service Portal forum. The benefit of community. I help you, you help me. We both appreciate it. Would it make sense? I think it would make sense to have a separate forum. You know, I should probably check. This may be one of those, hey, stupid, you didn't look. I've been known to do that plenty of times. Let's go to another tab. Go here and portal. Ha! Okay, good. We're making a new suggestion for service portal. Portal. It is a unique skill set, and those who have the ability to help would be best able to serve by subscribing to the forum. Right now, service portal questions, issues seem to be scattered far and wide among the other forums. I think we have sufficient user base to warrant this. Thoughts? Hey, if anybody wants to go upvote that, if you agree, go over to the member forum, look for whatever I called it, Service Portal Forum, and down on the bottom, you can upvote it. Should be right at the top now. Maybe I should put that as a question mark. Yeah, let's edit that so it'll show up better on the index. Is it time for a service portal forum? Question mark. It's all in how you phrase it. That might catch some eyes. All right. And with that, we're just about at the top of the hour. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been probably the most enjoyable episode I've been on so far. A lot of good interaction. I can't believe how fast it went. Definitely put some energy into my day. I am ready to get going and get started. There is so much to do and so little time to do it. I'm sure you can all appreciate that as well. It's been a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Friday. TGIF to you. We went so fast into this, I didn't even say. This is for Thursday, the 19th of April. I'll have the date on the show title as soon as it gets done processing on YouTube, of course. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Sturdivant. Hope I said that right. I have no idea. And Carolyn, and Felipe, and Joao, and Jay, and... Great. You guys are awesome. Hope to see you again soon, and I look forward to seeing any and all of you that are going to Knowledge in a few short weeks. It's crazy. I'll be leaving 2 weeks. Oh, man. 2 weeks from Saturday. That's crazy. I don't know if I'm going to get everything done. Take care. Have a good day. Don't forget, if you learn something new, make sure you share it either in the forum with your community, an email, something, so that you can learn and grow and others can take part of that. Till next time, bye. Have a great day.